So thank you all and welcome to tonight's webinar, Generating Momentum for Growth in 2024. I'm excited for you all to be here. You can see here there were a couple different questions to think about that we'll use for our icebreaker in just a minute or two, but I did want to go through kind of a high-level overview of who I am. If I haven't had the chance to meet you yet, or you're watching this recording and you don't know who I am, I'm Eric Alpin. I am a coach, a speaker, and a facilitator, and the owner of Stratiform Solutions. And I like to describe myself with three terms. I'm a solution finder, an idea connector, and a bridge builder. And that's not normally how people describe themselves, but I like to use these terms because they really emphasize, broadly speaking, kind of my why and what I like to do and kind of the things and the themes that kind of come out in my life, not just in work, but also in other areas as well. I love finding solutions for myself and also helping others find solutions. I love taking big ideas and kind of breaking them down into smaller pieces and connecting maybe seemingly unrelated ideas and putting them together to see what can come of that. And then also I love building bridges between people. So, taking two people and connecting them with one another, or really trying to sit there and kind of have a discussion. And I love those deep, meaningful conversations. So these things really have kind of come together in this form of a coach, speaker, and a facilitator. And you can see here more a little bit about kind of why I do what I do, because I believe that we all should feel empowered, we should all feel equipped, and we should be moving toward a growth-minded future in the way that is best for us for how we are uniquely wired. And that when that happens, not only are our lives transformed, but also the people around us as well. There's a QR code on your screen. It'll pop up again a little bit later on in our session today. And if you don't have my contact information in your phone, you can scan that, go down to save contact, and then save that contact to your phone. You can you have my phone number, my website, the social media accounts for Stratiform Solutions. So if you don't have those already, definitely go ahead and add those. So at the beginning of every webinar, I love to go over kind of the guiding principles that we use during our conversation. And the first one is that we respect one another's perspective, especially if it's different than our own. We really want to have a respectful and safe environment for people to to voice their opinions and their perspectives, and to feel safe in doing so. The second is that we encourage vulnerability and safety, and growth and transformation depend on that. So without vulnerability and without safety, we can't kind of take those steps toward growth and transformation like we need to. The third one is we practice in our preferred way, whether that's chat, emojis, video, not video, whatever that looks like. But through it all, we remain focused and attentive and contribute to the conversation. So a lot of people like to be on video. I'm always going to be on video, but feel free to toggle on and off, or keep it off, but just remain attentive during our conversation together. And finally, we recognize the collaborative brilliance among us and make space for others to contribute. And I heard about this term a couple weeks ago when I was actually attending my own webinar. And I like to think about collaborative brilliance as when we all get together and we start voicing our ideas and our opinions and our perspectives, there's always that moment where someone says something in just the right way that kind of gives us a different perspective on how we're thinking or what we're going through. And then we can even use that as a springboard for the broader discussion or in our own lives. So we have that collaborative brilliance, and we want to make sure that that is something that we really promote and we value in our conversation today. I just want to take a second to pause, say, hey, Josh, thanks for hopping on. I appreciate that. And we've kind of just gone through some guiding principles for our conversation today. And there were a couple of questions at the beginning we'll use as an icebreaker, but you can always hop onto those in just a second when we go over those. So this is kind of the opening segment that I like to have of basically the high level question of why is it important that you're here? You're taking time out of your evening or your afternoon, depending on where you are, or if you're watching the replay, to really kind of invest in yourself, which I applaud you for that. But why is it important that you're here? And then also, if you'd be willing to share two of the answers from kind of those questions earlier, I'll toggle back to that slide in just a second. And then also, what is one goal or vision that you have for yourself for 2024? So would anyone like to open up our conversation?
Hey, this is Ray Quaid. And yeah, for me, October is a time a lot of fun because it's my daughter's birthday and Halloween both in the same day, so it's a little chaotic, but it's a lot of fun, and it really just kicks off the whole season because it's a time of the family and community coming together, and then we got Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I just love fall. It's my favorite time of year, and I'm here because I'm going to be joining a new team where I'm going to be collaborating and coaching with other people. And I'm like, wow, this is just the perfect time for a webinar like this. So great timing.
Great. Thanks, Ray. Yeah, I love October too because everything starts to get a little bit cooler. I don't like that it's already dark by this point, but again, like you said, it kind of kicks off that kind of fun season. So yeah, I think that's great. I'm glad this comes at a really good time for you. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Jim. So, highlight of October for me was my wife and I celebrated our 14th year for our anniversary. So that was pretty cool. And we're kind of getting back in the swing of things of making kind of time. That's kind of our daughter is a little bit older now. So it's kind of getting some of that alone time back where we're able to kind of connect that way. And then I guess the reason that I'm here is as 2024 comes up, my job's going through a bit of a kind of a transition right now, kind of a reorg. So it's like trying to see if there's any applicable things that we could take here and apply there to some of the stuff that's going on for me at work.
Great. Thanks, Jim.
Sure.
Yeah, Josh here. I would say the highlight of my October is definitely we hold a Halloween party every year. That I mean, it's bigger than Christmas around these parts. So it's always a good time. And then for 2024, I'm starting a new project at work that I'm going to be leading a team for the first time. So I'm nervous and excited, hoping it goes well.
Yeah. Hopefully you can take some of these principles away and kind of help you leverage that for sure. And I'm very interested in this Halloween party.
I can go. My name is Jennifer. The highlight of my October was finding out that a trip that I was supposed to go on in 2020 to Romania that got postponed or canceled at the time is now back on the calendar. So I'll be able to go in 2024 on a service trip to Romania. So I'm pretty excited about that. Kind of answers two of them. A highlight of October, something I'm looking forward to in 2024.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Great. Yeah, you've waited a long time for that trip then. It's been 4 years. Awesome. Well, thank you all for that. Greg, I see you just came off mute there.
Oh yeah, I'm Greg. Nice to meet everybody. I would say one of my highlights for October was definitely the cooler weather, just a little bit, but definitely football season was coming through, so I was able to join a couple fantasy football teams, and I just look forward to this time of year. I think it's just a very beautiful time of year, a little bit different, a lot of change and growth opportunities, and looking forward to 2024 as well.
Thank you all. My highlight of October was that I went to Shenandoah National Park with my wife and our 12-year-old husky. We did some hiking, and we try to go every year around this time to really just kind of take in the beauty of the park and the changing leaves, and kind of just get some time away, which was really good. And I'm looking forward to 2024, just kind of investing in other people. I know that might sound kind of lame to some people, but I really do find a lot of joy in it, and just having more opportunities to do that and kind of see how I can kind of fulfill my own goals in that, and then also help others achieve theirs as well. So let me toggle back here. All right. So I wanted to give just a kind of big picture overview of our conversation together this evening. So we have our introduction, that we're going to talk about what momentum is, and specifically how it relates to growth. I think it's really important at the start of every conversation, no matter what it is, to define key terms, because we all come into a conversation with our own definitions of different things. And so if we can get all on the same page as to what these terms mean, and sometimes what they don't mean, that can be really helpful for our conversation. Then we're going to talk about why momentum matters for growth and what are some of the benefits of momentum. Then we'll kind of go over some strategies for building and sustaining momentum. What are some actions that you can take right now? I always want to make sure that these webinars are applicable and that you can easily walk away with some things for you to action on. I really, again, believe that we all should be empowered and equipped. So one of the biggest goals of these webinars is to make sure that you are finding them valuable and that you can take what you learn and put it into practice. Finally, we're going to talk about what to do when momentum stops, because it's going to at some point, and what we can do to kind of re-kickstart that and how we can move on from there. And then also, when we look ahead to 2024, let's take a look at what we've talked about and how can we apply it to our 2024 goals. Now, I did email everybody last week about kind of thinking ahead about some goals or a vision that you have for yourself in 2024. And some of you talked about that during your pick two, and kind of why it was important for you to be here today. So keep that in mind as we're talking about these things. And if you haven't thought of one, or you're having a hard time thinking of one, just take a couple seconds to do that now, because it's easiest to kind of absorb this information when we can easily, or when we have a situation that we can apply it to in our own lives. Again, that kind of helps with that action planning and taking those steps after we wrap up. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to talk about what growth is. For our context today, growth is the intentional decision to move in a direction that aligns with your core self. So this definition really promotes a couple of different things. First, growth is an intentional decision. Growth means that you are thinking about a decision, or you are thinking about where you want to go or something you want to achieve, and you are intentionally making choices to get you in that direction. And then the second big part of that about this is that it aligns with your core self. Too many times we do things and we try to go down different paths where we might be pleasing other people, or we might be doing what we think is just right in a situation, but maybe it doesn't align with who we are. And I think we've all been here before, where we kind of make some decisions and we just begrudgingly do it, or we regret doing it. And that's not really growth in the context that we're talking about today. Now, there are times where we can look back and we can reflect on a situation or in a time period, and we can say, oh man, I really did grow in this time, maybe because we were forced to. If we didn't, then maybe things would have gone even more awry than they already did. And that's definitely growth for sure. But for our context today, we're talking about the intentional decision to take a new step and to go in a new direction that aligns with our core self. Next, we want to talk about how growth and change are different. So change is simply going from one thing to another without intentionality or reason. And I think we all know that everyone changes quite a few times over the course of their life. And that's just natural. As you get older, priorities change, things look different for you. But that's a little bit different, again, in our context today, than what we're talking about growth. Now, change, like I said, can trigger growth that may not be realized in the moment. So that was kind of what I was getting to earlier when I said that some growth may be unintentional in that, but really the growth we're talking about today, again, is the intentional decision. And you all made the intentional decision to be here anyway. So I think that you all are aware of that and are already setting yourselves up for success in 2023 and 2024. And why does it matter? When we set goals or have a vision as to where we want to go, we need to experience growth to get there. We can't meet our goals, or we can't step into what we think would be best for us without experiencing growth to get us there. So growth is a really critical part of kind of moving ourselves forward. Now let's talk about momentum. Momentum is the force that sustains movement and progress in the direction of your goals. So without momentum and without that driving force, you wouldn't be able to take the steps that you need to in order to meet your goals. And when you have that momentum and when you start gaining traction early, which is what we're talking about here tonight, if you have a goal for 2024, or if you want to make some changes, I know a lot of people like to do New Year's resolutions. If that is something that you like to do, or again, you have these objectives, or these plans are coming for 2024, professionally or organizationally, instead of just waiting for January 1st to come along, there are some things that you could probably do now in 2023 to build those habits and to take those steps and to gain that traction to move yourself forward in the direction of your goals. That's momentum, and that's what we're talking about tonight. In the context of personal and professional growth, momentum helps us build resilience, power through obstacles, and keep taking action towards our objectives. And we know this just from basic examples, like that if you show up to, for example, the gym multiple times a week, then it's probably easier to go, when you're not quite feeling like it would be good for a workout. Instead of if you haven't been for 3 or 4 weeks and then you try to get that started again, that's a little bit tougher in that scenario. Or if you have an eating habit that you want to try to change, or anything else, that it's much easier to do those things that you may not want to do in the moment if you've already been doing it for a while, than trying to kind of restart that process or kind of take those additional steps in that direction. And then there's science behind this. So research shows that if you build on your small successes over time, then that creates positive emotions in your brain that reinforce behavior, which is what momentum is. It's, again, taking those small steps over time, over and over again, which allow us to achieve our goals. So not only is this something that makes us feel good in momentum, and not only does it help us achieve our goals, but there's also science that kind of backs this up as well. So I'd love to hear from you. I would like to take a couple minutes to kind of talk through, how would you define growth? How would you define momentum? And then what do you think are some of the benefits of building momentum as we kind of get into the meat of our conversation today?
I can say something. I tend to be like an all or nothing person, and especially if I get something in my mind that I want to do, accomplish, be, whatever, I kind of want to just like do it. I'm not a big fan of the process always, and that's not how things work usually. So I have gotten better at this, but it's still a practice. But momentum to me feels like, at least if I'm stumbling forward. So even if I'm not all the way there, where I want to be, if at least I'm just moving forward in some ways.
Yeah, that's great. And those are a couple things that we're going to talk about in a couple minutes. So just a little bit of a preview for you there.
Yeah, so this is Jim, but the one thing you said was I think it was, can you go back? It was something about like building, like stacking on the successes or something, or yeah, like the small successes. There was something when you came across that part, there was something, there was a was it Andrew Huberman, like one of his podcasts I was like listening to the other day, and I think was talking about like dopamine, which is like that chemical that your brain releases based on like certain activities or whatever. But it was in relation to momentum, in that I think what he was talking about for that specific topic was you almost have to like find the joy in doing like the hard thing, because if all you're doing is like chasing that like good feeling, like going to the gym, while it may produce like a good feeling or like a runner's high or something like after that, like you have to find the joy in like the act of going, not just like the result you get from it. So that way when it's like you have those like hard moments that like you have to do, but like you may not find any like joy or pleasure in doing them, but they're things that like have to be done. Like you can almost like trick your brain into like, I know we don't like this, but we're gonna like this sort of thing. It's kind of a, I'm probably butchering the way he's explaining it, but there was like real science that he did at Stanford, talking about that, and like how you can like almost like rewire your brain to like enjoy doing the difficult things and not just like the things that automatically come easy or produce like dopamine. So
Yeah, no, I can totally understand that. And I think that's a really interesting just area to explore, but then also how do you build yourself up to that? Because I think it's not something that comes very easily for a lot of people, but it's kind of keeping that end in mind, and again finding joy in the moments where it's like, yeah, I don't want to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, but if that's the only time that I have to do the thing that I need to do, then I kind of got to find the joy in that and not just the end result for that.
Yep.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
Springboard off of that, I have to agree. That's why that traction with the momentum is so important, because that's where I get my motivation, is by getting those small victories. And sometimes when I'm starting a project that's really big, having any victory early on is what's going to give me that momentum and traction as I go on.
Yeah, I think Jen kind of alluded to that too, where she was saying like stumbling her way forward. I mean, it's a victory in some sense of the word, but I think it kind of helps with that for sure.
This might be a little low level, but I was kind of thinking of, at a base level, growth is just incremental improvement over 2 points in time, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
I was going to add just that there's a confidence that you kind of get with growth a little bit, which can help sway the momentum to, to grow as a person, as an individual, especially in the business field. So I think that there is a level of confidence that you gain that helps you get to a momentum where you can push forward into new and bigger, exciting opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that confidence piece is really important. And Josh, I think that you summed it up well when you said intentional, intentional or incremental change between 2 points. I think that at the very basic level, I think that that's a really, really good definition of growth. And I think that's what we should be aiming for, to know like we don't have to go from where we are today to, this big grandiose thing, but it's just, the growth is just those small incremental steps toward something bigger. So the benefits of generating momentum. So these are just 3 things here. Feel free to chime in if you think of anything else. We've kind of talked about some of these already, but we have the increased motivation and focus. So momentum breeds more momentum. There's a compounding effect on this, and it's providing that sense of achievement and inspiring confidence through the small victories that we have. I think a lot of you kind of alluded to that in your answers to the previous 2 questions. But again, it's more of this compounding effect, and that as you begin to have that momentum over time, you can take kind of those bigger steps. You kind of feel like you take on a little bit more, which is the second point. It allows us to tackle bigger and more complex challenges once we kind of have this repertoire or this backing of these smaller wins. Because we have the confidence to do so. And, to Jim's point, and to some of the other points as well, it kind of, helps the brain know, okay, we can kind of take on a little bit more. And that's that safety aspect, because we have the confidence in ourselves and we know that if something does go wrong, it's not disastrous. We can pick up the pieces. We can still move on from there. And we can take those steps toward those bigger challenges. And the other benefit is that momentum helps us to create community. So at Stratiform Solutions, the thing that I really want to drive home with everyone that I talk to and anyone that I work with is that growth is best done in community with others, which is one of the main reasons why I love having these webinars. And as you begin to feel more confident with yourself and you know what's ahead and you think you can tackle those bigger challenges, you are more apt to bring people along with you, which not only benefits you if you are, looking to hone your leadership skills or you're looking to really just advance some kind of bigger mission, but it also helps other people as well. And honestly, confidence is contagious sometimes. I know I've been in rooms with people who are just really confident, and their confidence inspires me and lets me know that I can kind of do the things that maybe I've been putting off or maybe something that I'm hesitant about. So as you build that momentum, you can bring other people along with you and you kind of really elevate your own leadership in that as well. So let's kind of talk about strategies for building momentum. And this is kind of the nuts and bolts of what we're going to talk about this evening. And this would be the point where I'd really like for you to think about, okay, how can I apply some of these things to my own situation? And at the bottom of each of these, there's 6 of them. At the bottom of each, I kind of give some focus questions or maybe a different way of thinking about things. And we can talk through those. Feel free to chime in at any time. And if you want to use the raise your hand emoji, feel free to do that. Come off mute, whatever that is. But I would really love to hear from you, like as you're thinking about 2024, I'd love to hear what you could do now in 2023 as we're kind of winding down this year to kind of set yourself up for that bigger success and more of that sustained momentum in the long run in 2024. And then also, obviously, if you have any questions or if you disagree with something or you have something to add, feel free to chime in there as well. So the first thing is to think really small. And we have, like I said, we have these big visions and these big goals, but oftentimes we get hung up on the details and we just don't know where to start. We know that there's multiple moving parts and so many different components or pieces to it, and that can be really overwhelming. If you've ever tackled a big project, either personally or professionally, you can know that there's probably a lot of steps for doing something. And I like to think about this as a Lego kind of creation. I love Legos. My daughter loves Legos. My wife loves Legos. So we have a ton of Legos around my house. And when you look at the box and you think of, you see, 2,000 pieces or 3,000 pieces, whatever it is, you look at this box and it's this grand creation. And you're like, how did someone even think to build that? Well, they built it one piece at a time. And obviously they have software to help them and other tools, but it really is just putting together one piece at a time in a certain order and putting them all together to give you this bigger picture and this grander thing. So if we think small and we think achievable, then we can help ourselves by building that momentum. So kind of the focus question or the challenge question with this is, does your goal that you have need to be broken down into 20 or 30 or whatever the number is, smaller goals? Maybe it's only 5, maybe it's 10, but is there a way that you can take what you want to achieve and kind of slice it up and say, okay, let me start here and let me move on to this one, and so on and so forth. The second strategy would be to not wait. So today is the day to start. Don't sell yourself short and don't delay until tomorrow. And I think that Jen, you said this really well when you said sometimes when you're not feeling it, you still just try to stumble forward and you just try to do it. And even the smallest action can help keep that momentum up and keep your motivation going. So the focus here is, what is one small action you can take today? I know for me, sometimes I get so bogged up on, okay, well, I can start that next week, or maybe I need to do that thing, tomorrow or the next day. But there's always something that I can do right now to help myself kind of achieve that. I know that sometimes I go to the gym really early in the morning and I don't want to. And one of my biggest barriers is trying to figure out just literally what clothes to put on, because I don't want to make that decision in the morning. But like other people, I set my clothes out the night before, and it takes away that sticking point for me. And I do that the night before, and it's something that I can help myself, in the moment, and not be an excuse, and to not kind of be a barrier for me. But again, it's something that I can do today. It's something very small, but it's very helpful. Obviously, that looks a lot different when you're thinking about bigger goals, bigger visions, but the same concept applies of like, okay, what can you do today or what can you do tomorrow to help yourself in a few days, or to help yourself next week, next month, so on and so forth. And it can be really small, but it doesn't mean that it's less meaningful in any way. And then the third one on this slide is to just do it anyway. Sometimes a task doesn't seem like it will make a difference. Sometimes it doesn't seem like you doing this thing or not doing this other thing is really going to make a difference in the long run. But again, the neuroscience behind that says just because you're making the decision and just because you know, okay, this is toward a bigger thing, and if you can find some joy in that moment, that can really help you as you are trying to maintain and build that momentum towards something else. So do you tend to only try something if you can give it 100%? So I'd love to hear from you on this before we move on to the next 3 strategies. What are some things that kind of resonate on this page, and maybe some things that you can kind of take and apply to your own goals?
I mean, I think the biggest one for me is the, can you give it 100%? Most of the time, I would say if I'm not starting on a task, it's because I feel like I'm just not going to I'm not putting 100% in, or I'm not going to like fully complete it. So yeah, I put it off until I feel like I'm going to have that energy or that time. Yeah.
And then that time does not always come. And then you feel like there's another project and another project. And now, so like that's what I was saying earlier about stumbling forward is not comfortable for me. Like, I don't want to take little steps. I want to just do the whole thing and be done, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think for me, like I kind of almost see all three of these. I don't know, for what I from talking with you, Eric, like we kind of discussed about the possibility of like mentoring, and I feel like some of this is kind of like all three of these things like woven together, where it's like, think small, where it's literally just like almost like get out there and start. And now that I was able to start, it might actually be able to look at 2024 completely different, where it's like you use the rest of 2023 to figure out like, well, what areas, in mentoring, other younger designers, is there a need, and is there something that I can learn from that to carry forward into like 2024 to really try and hone in and specialize and see like where there is a demand or things that you can do. So I almost see that I really do see all three of these things like kind of like interwoven, at least for kind of the most recent life experience for me with that.
Yeah. That's a great insight there. And I love how you applied that to something that we've already talked about, and to something that's still going to be a focus for you in 2024. Yeah, and this is the perfect example of doing something now to kind of help yourself next year and kind of get ahead of things, rather than kind of just waiting for something to happen to you, or waiting to kind of start and be like, oh, new year, new me, or fresh start, those kind of things. It's like you can start doing stuff right now, and that just helps you more in the long run.
Yeah.
So I think one of the important things definitely is the don't wait, the center one that you have. I do feel that when you wait, you tend to put off things that you just don't want to do, or you think, okay, I could do this tomorrow, like you had said earlier. But I think it's so important when we take the time to, as think small, break it down into 5 or 6 goals, maybe if it's a smaller one, in order to facilitate the changes that you're looking for. And I do agree that you have to seize the day every day so that you can find kind of not peace in what you're looking for, but find the motivation to move forward and grab the momentum and just drive it full force forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Those are good points. And I do want to just say here that I am all about balance, and I am all about taking the time that you need for yourself. I never want to advocate for hustle culture, because I know that causes burnout, and it causes anxiety, and a whole host of other things can be linked to that. So the things that we're kind of talking about today are, in a vacuum could seem like I'm kind of advocating for, oh, you keep pushing yourself, keep going forward. But obviously, there's a big component, and we're going to talk about it in a couple minutes, of knowing yourself and knowing what you can handle, what you need to do, knowing kind of your rhythms and how that applies. So I think that's also something to keep in mind as well. Is like, we don't have to keep go, because eventually we're going to get to the point to where we're just going to be stopped, and we're not going to be able to do anything, just because we need that break, and we need that refreshing kind of recharge. But I think that these, in a way, like we've always been kind of talking about, is like, if we can just do something small and we can do it over time where it doesn't take a lot of effort, then that's really helpful for us. So I'm going to move on to the next section here. So again, 3 more strategies for building momentum. Know yourself and plan well. So I just talked about this. When we know our tendencies, energy levels, habits, and gut reactions, and a whole host of other things, we are able to plan out and set ourselves up for success. Again, this goes back to the thing of like, growth is intentional, and it aligns with who you are to your core. If you know that you can't go every day, if you need some time to breathe in there, then you need to build that in. And stepping away and taking time off, or taking time away, in and of itself can be growth. I know so many people who thrived during the COVID pandemic, because they actually had time to breathe and they didn't have to run around and do all these different things and keep all these commitments because nothing else was happening. So they were actually able to have that time to think deeper, to have more self-awareness, and just to feel better as people when our world was in a pretty crazy time at that point. But because they were able to take that time and to breathe, they experienced growth in that. So growth can also mean taking a step back or kind of taking some time to recharge. But when we know our tendencies, our energy levels, we can give more effort during those times when we know that we are at our best. So again, we can set ourselves up for success. So kind of the focus question here is what factors can help set you up for success? And also, what does better look like for you? I had a mentor and a friend kind of pose that question to me a couple weeks ago, and it really stuck out of what does better look like for you? In this moment, what does better even mean? And again, talking about generating momentum and growth, how can you get there? Keep track and review. We need to keep track of our progress, and we need to review our milestones and where we're going pretty frequently. And one big benefit of doing that is that it helps us find patterns. So we can know a lot about ourselves up front, or maybe we don't, but if we keep track, then we can kind of find these patterns of, am I better at certain times of the day? Or do certain people give me maybe better insights or hold me more accountable than other people? And the other benefit of that is it helps us gain confidence and it helps us see how far we've come. I love coaching people and I love taking time every few weeks, every 3 or 4 weeks to just say, hey, let's take a couple minutes to think about, you 3 or 4 weeks ago, and you were dealing with this problem or whatever this was, and look where you are now. Look how much has changed. Look how much growth has happened, even from just 3 or 4 weeks ago. And it's so eye-opening for people because they're like, you're actually right. I have made a lot of changes, or there has been a lot of growth in this. But in the moment, it may not feel that way. So if we can keep track of that progress and we can keep moving in that direction and we make it a regular part of our reflection time to review and see just how far we've come, that can really help us as we're moving forward and to try to keep building that momentum. So the focus question here is, have you ever kept track of your progress towards goals in the past? This could be an app. This could be talking to other people. Again, this could be a coach or someone else that's kind of helped you with that. And if not, what can you do to start doing that? Maybe it's a log, maybe again, it's an email to yourself, whatever that looks like, to kind of keep that progress going and to continue to kind of log that as well. And the sixth thing here is just to be in community with others. So when you journey with others, you can find the support, encouragement, and the external accountability or motivation to keep pushing forward. And this is pretty common advice for people who are trying to change a habit or eat better or maybe go to the gym. There's always kind of like this buddy system that goes along with it. But even more so, if you can find a group of people who can support you or encourage you along the way and offer these kind of diverse perspectives and these different insights, kind of, again, back to this collaborative brilliance thing that we talked about at the beginning of our time tonight, then that can really kind of help you be in community with others. And I have a really exciting thing to kind of talk about a little bit later about what 2024 holds for Stratiform Solutions. And a big part of that is being in community with other people so that we all can achieve success and growth together. So the focus question here is, who in your life can help you achieve your goals in 2024? So I'm going to pause here for a couple minutes to let you all chime in. Anything that resonated with you, kind of how you can apply this, or if you want to take a shot at answering these focus questions, I think that would be really good too.
I was gonna start it off if that's okay. For the first part, I was looking at what factors can help you set up for success, and I found what better looks like for me is slowing down and taking a good look at what my success looks like to me, and then having someone like yourself as a mentor to kind of help guide those principles. And I find that slowing down and taking my time when available definitely helps set up my success. And that might look different to other people, but for me, I think that's like the most important part. Um, and then I've kept track of my progress towards goals in the past by writing things down, keeping accurate notes. If I'm not sure about something, going to the right person to help guide me in that direction. And I definitely appreciate the help that you provided to me in the past as well.
I'll be the one to drop the cliche answer for personal goals. My partner Taylor is definitely my biggest fan and my harshest critic. Great resource for keeping me on track. And professionally, there's a project manager I work very closely with who is blunt, to put it nicely, and is always good for honest feedback.
That's great. That is great that you have two people in your life to kind of help you with that motivation, that support, and that encouragement. But also, just that honest feedback can be really valuable too. So often we create these vacuums for ourselves, to where we surround ourselves with people who just think the same way as us, and just kind of give us the answers that we want, or that they think that we want, and they don't really kind of challenge us to move forward. So it's great that you have two people, both personally and professionally, to help you with that.
Yeah, I think for me, the what stood out on this slide is says like know yourself, and I just experienced this today. I learned a bit ago that I have my best ideas and can get my best work done early in the day. So it's like probably like after I had my kid, it was just like kind of like rewired my brain to basically be like, this is when I can do all my work. And I would go into the office and be there for like 2 or 3 hours before everyone got there. And it would just be like, I get more work done in that short amount of time than when the meetings and everything just the rest of the day would start. Like I would have like 60-70% of the work I needed to get done that day done in that like short span. And I noticed it today. I had a late afternoon meeting, and it still has not changed. Like I just struggle with those like late afternoon meetings that require like critical thinking. So like I think just knowing that and like being able to structure um I don't know, like time for me in the mornings, and you know, and I think in the mornings too, I keep a journal of just like just handwritten, like old school. Like I just feel like it doesn't need to be digital or anything like that. It's like something's there in the act of like writing things down, pencil to paper or pen on paper, and just like getting thoughts out. So I don't feel like I have to carry those throughout the day. It's like just being able to kind of like, okay, noted that, let that go, and then just focus on the things that need to get done to kind of keep momentum going forward throughout the day.
Those are some great insights. I think that knowing your energy levels is probably one of the biggest things. I actually, similar to Jim, I found out not today, but I found out probably maybe a year or two ago that I do my best in the morning. Like I'm okay with waking up at 5 or 5:30, having a cup of coffee, setting a timer on the coffee machine, old school, having it ready, pouring a cup of coffee and sitting down and trying to do something. I can get it done. It's peaceful, it's quiet before anything else kind of kicks up for the day. And I got through grad school a lot by writing super early in the morning like that, because I just can't function in that same capacity, later on in the evening. So it was really insightful to just know that, and I've applied that in so many different areas too. But also knowing what can boost your energy levels or help you, if you need a dopamine hit or whatever that means. If you're feeling maybe stress or something like that, knowing what can help you there, in a helpful way, is really good as well to kind of, again, keep that momentum going and to get you back to where you are, close to your best.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's talk about a template for generating momentum. So this kind of, again, kind of goes over some of the, or all the things that we've already talked about, but kind of puts them in a certain order that might be most helpful. And the first one is self-awareness. So again, knowing tendencies, personality, reaction, and habits. I think we need to have a level of awareness around these so that we can know, again, not only when we are at our best, but in the same vein, what can maybe cause us to maybe go down this path where we know we're not getting any work done. I know that if I come home and I sit on the couch and I watch a show with my wife, that when I'm done with that show, I'm not going to want to get up and prepare my lunch for the next day or whatever that is. And that's a really simple example, but I think it shows that I know my own tendencies and my personality well, that once I'm kind of down and in that relaxation for the evening, that I'm not going to really do much after that. But we also need to have insight into our emotions and motivations. And what makes you uniquely you? What are those things that that you are really good at? What are those things that that really motivate you, and the things that kind of light you up and give you energy? And throughout the day, kind of begin thinking that and sensing that in yourself of like, oh, I just had this conversation with this person and I feel like I just drank a cup of coffee. Like maybe that's a good thing. Maybe I need to talk to this person more, or maybe it was the topic that we were just talking about. Or on the flip side of that, I just finished this meeting with this person and now I want to go take a nap. And maybe it wasn't the person, maybe it was the topic or the type of day or time of day or whatever it was. But again, just keeping kind of your emotions, motivations, and different things in check, and kind of keep tapping into those, and having that self-awareness. So that's the first step here. The second is to think big. So we got to zoom out first, have an idea where we want to go. What's that goal? What's that vision that we have? What do we want to achieve? Or what are the things that we want to embody? Some of these things are, hey, I want to be more of a helpful person, or I want to make sure that I think of others first, or I want to serve others. That can be a really good goal, but how do you embody that? And having kind of these bigger picture thoughts is really helpful, because that's kind of the direction we want to go in. And does that align with who you are? If it doesn't, then maybe you can think about putting that in a way that does align with who you are, or maybe you need to think of something else. And then kind of another focus question here, what are the big rocks that need to be in place to get you to that point? So I know that Josh and Ray, you mentioned about how in 2024, you're going to be on different teams, or you're going to be kind of in different roles. So maybe for you, it's thinking about, okay, what are the things that I need to do ahead of time to think about kind of the big picture things to help me be set up for success, in the future. Again, instead of just waiting until that time comes, but maybe there are some things that you can do now, which is the think small aspect of this, to kind of get there. What needs to happen to get you to your first milestone? A lot of the time, it's just kind of getting to that first one. And then once we know that we've achieved something, or we've kind of maybe done a couple tasks to kind of get us to our first mile marker, we can kind of start to build that momentum even more. And then also thinking about what barriers or obstacles you need to address. Having contingency plans and knowing what might be around the next corner isn't going to hurt. It's only going to help you in the long run, because you're going to be aware of it. And when it comes along, you can say, hey, I was expecting this. This doesn't deviate much from my plan. I built in time to address this, whatever that looks like. If you can think about some of those barriers or those obstacles ahead of time when you are thinking small, then that's only going to help you kind of jump over them or go around them as you continue to generate momentum. The last two here are to just do it. We talked about this earlier. You got to take that first step or two of your smaller plan. Again, what are those things that you can do to move you incrementally from point A to point B? And then also kind of have this reflection of how did it go? What needs to change next time? Maybe you did really well, but maybe there was just one or two things that maybe could set yourself up for success, again, or maybe set yourself up for more success in the future if you only kind of change a couple different things. And then finally, we need to be able to adjust course on this. So things aren't going to go as planned all the time, and that's not all bad. But we need to kind of reflect on what we've done so far, maybe understand what we need to do to move forward from that, and kind of, again, like I said, have some plans in place to help us. Maybe it's a person that hey, if I reach out to this person and I tell them that I have a problem, maybe they don't solve the problem for me, but maybe they'll help me have the motivation and the encouragement to help me move forward from this. Or again, maybe it's a habit that from self-awareness and self-reflection to know, okay, if I'm feeling like I'm stuck in this area, maybe it's a hobby that you do, or maybe it's that you give yourself a long weekend to kind of decompress, reflect, journal, get it out. And then when it comes Monday morning, you can continue to move on toward whatever goal that you had in mind. Any thoughts on this kind of high-level template for generating momentum? Anything that stuck out? Or do you have anything to add that you think maybe was missed?
I really like the self-awareness piece. I think that that's an important thing that can be difficult to understand, but once it's understood, it can definitely start the momentum track that we're looking for, and also can help you bring yourself to the point where you're just doing it because that's the next big thing for you.
Yep. All right. So any other strategies that come to mind when we talk about building momentum and kind of moving toward whatever that goal or that vision looks like for us? And then do you already have some insights? Have you already done some kind of work in the self-awareness space to know what you can already build upon, or if there's any steps that you've already taken toward your goal? What does that look like, and what does that mean for you?
I think for the one thing that kind of comes to mind, in like a team environment, if you're in like a workplace or whatever, and for some reason I started thinking about, there was a book Gretchen Rubin wrote a number of years ago, The Four Tendencies, and just if you're trying to build momentum within a team, she really talks about like how people, they're never like they're rarely ever in like all four of the buckets. I think it was like questioner, rebel, obliger, and I'm blanking on the other one. I can maybe dig the link up and put it in the chat, but it basically, it kind of lets you, it refocus, it helped me figure out like how to communicate to like other people in like different positions, to know like kind of helping to understand what their motivations were, and just like, even if it's just like saying something in a slightly different way to help it kind of, the person you're trying to communicate to, see it from their perspective. You know what I mean? So it's like, you're basically, if your boss is a rebel, he doesn't ever want to follow the rules, but you have to do this thing to, or whatever, like you would be like, well, the way you frame it and the context that you present that in, it really matters to whether or not they're gonna buy into the idea or not. And just being aware of like kind of who it is your audience is, I think is kind of important for building that momentum.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good point, that sometimes the things that we have to do and the actions that we have to take aren't things that we can do on our own. Sometimes you need approval from somebody, or sometimes you need to work together as a team. So there is this kind of adaptability, and how do we set ourselves up from a bigger perspective as we are interacting with others to help us continue that momentum.
Yeah, thinking about on the slide about community, the thing I'm presently thinking about is I've really got to as a strategy going forward, really actively seek out people who are going to celebrate the small victories with me, because it's hard to be happy with incremental improvements, or the small victories, when I'm still really stuck on the big picture, and having somebody to share the little victories with, and help celebrate them, I think it is critical to being happy with that.
Yeah, I think so often we get so used to thinking big picture, that we can just kind of just not disregard, but just kind of move past when we have a really small victory, and we don't take the time to really kind of sit there and celebrate that. So it's important that we have people who either we can tell the small victories to, or people who know us well enough to say, hey, do you just realize that, you just did this thing? That's an important step for you. And I think one of the biggest things that someone can tell another person is, hey, I'm proud of you for taking that step. I'm proud of you for doing that, because that was big. Or it might have been small, but it really kind of helps you in a big way to, again, generate this momentum moving forward.
Yeah, I think for me, that's one of the themes that's really sticking out from the building traction. And with the people I coach, getting buy-in is really important. So getting those small victories not only builds the trust and the buy-in, but then it gives them the momentum and gets them excited. So this kind of gives me a strategy, because I am someone who wants that 100%. I'm going for all, but especially with going into a new team, I think making it into those little Lego pieces that we're putting together, that'll build that excitement and trust.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, taking the momentum you have, again, like I said, and kind of using that to inspire other people and bring that on as well, and to help them build that momentum. So a lot of that is, just how do we work in community with other people to have kind of a broader success for the group, which then obviously helps everyone else as well. And that's really good insight, to know, hey, I'm going to be switching teams, I'm going to be leading some different people. What can I do now, and how can I be thinking about that at least, to better prepare myself and others to move in that direction. All right, so let's talk about maintaining momentum. Um, so 3 things here to help us maintain momentum: building positive habits and routines. So we all know the importance of routines, and doing the same things repeatedly can kind of help us, again, just know, okay, this is the day that I do this thing, or this is the time that I've given myself to move forward, or to kind of work on this thing, might be an example. Something that I know also really helps me and some other people is to have just a slight variety in our routines, because it kind of keeps it fresh, and it keeps our brains guessing as to what's next. So I have certain tasks that I need to do, but I don't always do them at the same time. And that might mean that maybe I do them in the morning on some days, and maybe in the evenings if they're really simple, easy to do, on other days. But they're getting done, and I have the time and the capacity to do them. But I kind of keep my brain guessing, but they're still kind of built into that routine. So you need to know yourself, though, in that. If you are someone who needs a structure to that and it helps you focus, then you need to kind of address that in your own way. But if you kind of need that a little bit of variety to keep your brain going and kind of keep it fresh, then definitely, obviously, do that as well. The second one is to stay accountable and to track your progress. We talked about this a couple of slides ago, and we've talked about kind of how we can log that. But staying in community with others and tracking your progress can help keep that momentum going strong. So I think it's important for all of us to be in that community with other people, and not only just to find people that think like you and to kind of that are going in the same direction of you, but also to find people who maybe can offer you that different perspective and can offer you that fresh insight. I think it's really great when you try to explain what you're doing, or the things that you're working toward, or a situation that you're in, to someone who has zero context or zero history to know as to what's going on, because it forces you to think about it and explain it in a very simple way, because you don't want to confuse anybody, but it also helps you kind of have that understanding of like, maybe I'm overcomplicating this, or maybe I just need to, again, take a small step to help me move in this direction of growth. And then finally, revisiting and adjusting goals as necessary. After you achieve 3 or 4 things, or you keep moving in that direction, maybe your goals further on down the line are going to change. Maybe they're going to shift, maybe they're going to adjust, and maybe what you had planned isn't relevant anymore. And that's just, again, a fact of life. So I think it's important for us to kind of revisit the goals as we're approaching them, to know, okay, if I try to do this thing the way that I originally thought about it, it's not going to work, or it may not be relevant anymore. So just kind of being nimble, being agile in that way of just knowing that we're going to have to adjust in order to make this success possible, but always make sure that your goals align with who you are. Again, you don't want to be doing something that is for someone else, unless obviously they are part of a team, or they are a stakeholder, or they are heavily involved in some way. But make sure that it just aligns with who you are, because when you get to that point to where you're doing things for other people, it gets kind of sticky in that, and that, you know, it can lead to other things like regret, or kind of stalled momentum, like we said, or conflict as well. So I want to talk about, you know, what happens quickly when things go sideways, when things don't go as planned. So a lot of times we just need to take the time to adjust to that. And taking the time and the space is really important. When we expect the unexpected and we know that there's going to be hangups or miscues, we need to give ourselves the space to process them, 1, emotionally, and 2, to address them. Sometimes it might mean that you need to pick up the phone and call somebody to maybe solution with them. Or maybe it means that you need to kind of brainstorm some different ways that you can address that. Or maybe you already know the answer and it might just take another day or 2 to get back on track. So the situation is pretty, you know, broad, and every situation is different. But if you can build in the time to adjust and give yourself the space to feel and to act, then you can start generating that momentum quicker, moving forward. So as you're thinking about your specific goal, what do you know will be a problem for you? And also, in addition to that, how or what might be some ways that you could address that problem when it comes up? Or who could you reach out to help you with that? The second thing is to just be honest with yourself. And Josh kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier when he said that he had someone else that kind of gave him honest feedback. When we get that honest feedback, or when we're kind of doing our own self-reflection, we need to be honest about what we're feeling and when we're stuck. If we try to minimize that, it can really lead to some less than ideal things in the long run. And we can start going in different directions, further away from our goals, or we could be kind of maybe be passive aggressive toward other people. And we don't want that. We want to make sure that we're being honest with ourselves and, again, acknowledge, reflect, and rework as needed. So what do you need to do so that you can be honest with yourself and with others? Maybe it's you find that person that you know that you can speak honestly to, and they're not going to judge you. Maybe it's journaling, where you can just write it out and get it off your chest and move on from there. Or maybe you have a pet or something that you just want to kind of sit and talk with them, because you know that they're not going to judge you at all. It's different for everybody, but it's important that you know what you need to do in those moments. And then finally, find out what helps you boost your confidence. So for me, I know that if I go for a run, that I'm going to kind of clear my head, and I'm going to have some more confidence to kind of move forward and take some steps that I need. It kind of helps me kind of hit the reset button and gives me some fresh eyes and a fresh perspective in order to take a look at in a new way whatever I'm kind of dealing with or facing. And that's what works for me, but it could be something different for everybody. So maybe it's you need to ask others for encouragement, or that there again is this hobby that you have that could help reignite that spark that you need to regain that momentum and to keep moving forward. So for you, what is a quick way for you to get inspiration or help? So I'd like to hear from you. What is a sticking point for you? And when I say sticking point, I mean, what is something that you get stuck on or you can't seem to move past historically? And what can you do, or how can you apply these strategies that we've talked about today, both from the benefits through the strategies to maintaining momentum and to kind of knowing, what you need to do when things don't go quite as planned? How can you apply all these things to your personal, professional, or organizational goals?
I think for me, it's going to be taking a step back, breaking up whatever, going into this new team.
Ray, you're pretty quiet. We can't hear you too well.
Is that any better?
Yes, it is. There you go.
Yeah, I think for me, it's, I'm going to have to get to know this team, but again, it's going to be breaking it up into smaller parts. And it's really going to be, I think it was Tim that might have said it, having that accountability partner to kind of keep me honest as I'm going through this and bouncing, whatever's going on off of that accountability partner. Along with, just knowing myself. One of the things that y'all kept saying is early in the morning. Wow, all my best productivity is earlier in the morning. Once I'm in that end of the day conference call, that's shutdown time. So, knocking out the huddles, the coachings when I have that energy, because like you were saying, that energy that I have and that momentum I'm bringing is going to be contagious.
Mm-hmm. Great insights.
I guess the one thing that stands out to me, and maybe this is cliche in saying it, but it's just like trying to remember to focus on the things you can control. I tend to get hung up on that a lot with work. If a project isn't going according to plan, and some of it just might be out of my control, and like some of the decisions that are being made like outside of the scope of whatever part of the project that I would be working on, and maybe I wouldn't make some of those same decisions. It's just trying to remember to focus on the things that I have influence over and try and do those to the best of my ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really important boundary to know and to hold yourself to as well. We can't control everything. We can influence some things, but we can't control it all. So that's a really important thing to know. And I don't think it's cliche at all, because I think it's probably one of the hardest things to do. All right. So we've kind of reached our time together. We've reached the end of our time together this evening, and I think it's been great. So I wanted to kind of go over the conclusion and some key takeaways as well. So momentum, I think, is important to remember that it has a compounding effect. Again, these small steps over time, and they can have a big impact. But as we build that momentum, and as we become better at adjusting to maybe what might come along the way, we are able to take bigger steps. We're able to have more confidence in that, and that we were able to kind of embrace the unknown in that and know that we're going to be okay. Part of that also is kind of this reflection and the self-awareness component, where we need to know, okay, what is the next right step for me? It sounds, again, super cheesy, but one of my, not my favorite song, but I really love the song from Frozen 2, where Anna is talking about, having to take the next right step. And I think that's really important for us to remember and to know we need to take the next right step for us. And what does that mean? Not, what does the next right step for Jim or for Greg or for Jen look like, but what is the next right step for me? Because that's what's going to maximize that momentum moving forward. And then I would love to, we kind of talked about some of the things that were kind of big takeaways. So if you wanted to kind of chime in with what you were thinking on that, that would be great. But I would love to know maybe what's one thing that you can do now in 2023. Maybe it's this week. Again, that the concept of don't wait, or just take the step, even if you're not at 100%. What are some things that you can do now to help begin building that momentum for 2024?
I think it's just what you said is perfect example is don't wait. And I think for me, 2024 is just about not waiting for opportunities to come to me, but actually seeking those opportunities myself and not waiting to do it. Just jumping in and going headfirst into some of the goals that I have for 2024. So I think that that's a very important part.
Great. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, it came up a lot. So I think for me, it's definitely celebrating the small victories.
It's important.
I think for me, just recognizing the relationship between the know yourself, the do it anyway, and then the don't wait. Because if I know myself and I know what I actually can get done, then I won't be so discouraged to not do it anyway because I can't get it all done. So I'll go ahead and make that little small goal, and I'll actually like do it, which would actually create momentum. Like it's all of them rolled up together. So I think just how you broke down all the strategy for momentum, but just how they relate to each other, even, I think is just a big takeaway for me.
Good. Yeah, if you think about it, it's more like a puzzle, and you have these different puzzle pieces and how they kind of plug into one another. And again, they in themselves kind of build momentum toward something else. So it's really good. All right. So thank you all for that. So I wanted to just kind of go over at a high level some of the things that I do at Stratiform Solutions for my clients. So we have two different types of coaching, which would be one-to-one coaching. It's really focused on growth and self-transformation. And when you registered for this event, there was kind of a little checkbox to say if you were interested in a free coaching consultation. I do offer free coaching consultations. So if you didn't check that, that's fine. You're going to be getting a survey to your inbox either later today or tomorrow. And there'll be an opportunity to kind of say that you would be interested in that if you're interested in learning more about what one-on-one coaching would look like. The second would be one-to-many coaching, which is group coaching or team coaching, to really help elevate groups of people toward what success means for them. And all that is done in community. Again, It's a really big component about the mission that we have here at Stratiform Solutions is growing in community with one another. And then workshops and webinars. So obviously you're attending a webinar. I really hope that you have found this to be valuable to learning more about why momentum is important and what you can do to kind of achieve growth in 2024. Keep an eye out for future webinars in 2024. This is our last one of 2023, but I hope to have more relevant content for you all and for others as well. So when you see the invite come through, feel free to forward or invite others that you think that might benefit from these events. I do want to let you know that webinar participants do receive 10% off of one-on-one coaching engagements if that is something you're interested in after we kind of have the coaching consultation. And always want to connect with you all on social media, so you can scan the dot card, digital business card over there, see all the social media links as well. We are on LinkedIn and Facebook. And I did kind of allude to this earlier, but I have an exciting announcement for something big that's coming for Stratiform Solutions in 2024. I will be launching what's called Empowered You, which is a community-oriented group coaching cohort that is focused specifically this one on career growth, upskilling, and empowerment. So this is there's a lot of benefits with this. I'm gonna pull up kind of the landing page for this here. And we can see that this is a group coaching, again, experience. One of the biggest things that I'm excited about with this is that there's going to be a private online community for people to interact with not only me, but other coaches, mentors, and career professionals that can help you on your journey toward career growth. And we want this community to be small. It's a group coaching cohort, but we also want it to be very authentic as well, because that is where we find the best growth and the most meaningful growth is when we are with other people and they can kind of hold us accountable, encourage us, and just be honest with us as well. So there's a couple other kind of benefits that I have listed out here. It'll be 6 sessions from 60 to 90 minutes long to help you navigate your career with confidence. We're going to talk about purpose. We're going to talk about your why, your overall goals and visions. We're going to talk about some personality assessments, again, to help with this self-awareness component. You'll be doing 3 different personality assessments, and you'll kind of get the readout on that. We'll talk more about that. There will be resume feedback as well from a talent recruiter. So there'll be like a resume review component of it, and then supplemental resources, and then obviously access to the 2 online communities as well. So for this group here, for people who have registered for the webinar, the price is going to start out at $169, and that's going to be for you no matter when you decide to register for that. If you are interested in joining this community, it's going to be $169 for you. It comes with a $650 value. The launch price, I think I'm going to post this to social media and start advertising this later this week or early next week. That's going to start at $189. But for anyone here who has registered or attended the call, it's going to be the $169 price. So definitely something to think about as we're thinking about our 2024 goals. It's going to run through late January through March. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to answer those. I'll be sharing the link to this landing page here in the recap email that I send out later tonight or early tomorrow. And if you are interested in this, then you can just put your name in here and your email address to reserve your spot. I thank you all for being here tonight. If you have any questions, feel free to stick around. I'll be on for a couple more minutes. Otherwise, I will catch up with you soon. Have a great night.